Hi everyone, this is Spring, the fiber enthusiast. Welcome to my channel. So this is the yarn that I'm going to use for this tutorial. Here is the information. It is an anti-pilling DK 50-gram ball. And it's 100% acrylic. And it says that it's machine washable. It's also lot number 9362, and the colorway is Mustard 70058. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can find the center pole on it and get started. Today's tutorial is a Tunisian tutorial, Tunisian crochet. So along with the yarn, you're going to need a Tunisian crochet hook if you intend to make a large project, and a pair of scissors, a needle to sew in your ends. For a small swatch, can use a crochet hook with a fairly decent size shaft that's all the same size. So we'll go ahead and get started. For this particular stitch, which is the honeycomb stitch, I will show you a small swatch that I've done on some 4-weight yarn. It is a cotton yarn. So here we are. That is what we're working on. Any number of chains will work. I will be chaining 10. So I'm going to start with my little hook and see if I can get them all on there. My little hook here is a G hook. It is the same size as my Tunisian hook. So slip knot on my hook and chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You're going to turn your work on its side and you're going to go into the second bump. So the back side of your stitches, you're going into the back of the second stitch. So insert your hook underneath that bump, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You're going to do that all the way to the end of your chain. And how do you know if you have the correct amount of loops on your hook? You will have 10 loops on your hook. So let's go ahead and get our 10 loops. So once you have your 10 loops on your hook, the first thing that you're going to do is we're going to do a standard back pass. Yarn over and chain 1. Now we're going to yarn over and go through 2, yarn over, go through 2, all the way until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So far it's pretty standard Tunisian crochet. All right. There we are. Okay, so the way to accomplish the honeycomb stitch is we're going to alternate between a simple Tunisian stitch and a purl stitch. Let's start with our simple Tunisian stitch. This is it, our very first stitch here. So now we're going to purl the first stitch after that. Bring your yarn to the front so it's in front of my hook. I'm going to insert my hook underneath that stitch, that vertical bar, the very next one. And then I'm going to bring my yarn around my hook, holding on to my work so that way I can pull that yarn through that stitch. And you might want to give it a little tug and even out your stitches. Okay, so now we're going to do a simple stitch under the next bar, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we're going to do a purl stitch. Bring that yarn to the front of your hook, insert your hook into that next stitch, and bring your yarn down and around your hook and pull up a loop. Tunisian simple stitch is your next stitch. And a purl stitch. Bring the yarn to the front, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn around the back of the needle and over your hook, and pull up a loop. Tunisian simple stitch, you're just alternating between the two stitches. Purl stitch, Tunisian simple stitch, and now our last stitch is a purl stitch. It's on the very end here. Yarn to the front, so you're under both of those legs. Bring your yarn to the front, around behind your hook, and now go through all of those and that stitch. Now, if you are correct and you have caught all the stitches, you should have 10 stitches on your hook. 8 and 10. So you have 10 stitches on your hook. Now you're going to do a simple, just a standard Tunisian back pass, yarn over, chain 1, yarn over, go through 2, and continue across until you have 1 loop left on your hook. Okay, so here's where the magic happens for the honeycomb stitch. You have purl, a regular Tunisian knit stitch, a purl stitch, Tunisian, and you can see that your purl stitches are kind of dipped down. Let me get rid of this crochet hook so we can look at it a little bit better. So there's these little purl bumps in between these vertical bars. So here's our 2 vertical bars. And then down here in between, there's a purl bump. And the stitch is considerably smaller than your Tunisian simple stitch. Okay? So what we're going to do to make that magic happen, you're now going to alternate. If it is a Tunisian simple stitch, you're going to purl it. If it's a purl stitch, you're going to Tunisian simple stitch it. So here's our first stitch. It is a standard stitch on the edge and it is already done. The next stitch is a purl stitch. So I want a Tunisian simple stitch that stitch. Then bring the yarn to the front. And in the next stitch, you're going to purl. Bring the yarn back around the back of the hook and pull up a loop. Tunisian simple stitch. And bring the yarn to the front, go into the next stitch, then bring the yarn around behind your hook and pull up a loop. Now Tunisian simple stitch, bring the yarn to the front and purl the next stitch. Tunisian simple stitch, purl stitch. And your last stitch on the end here will be a Tunisian simple stitch. Pulling up a loop. And again, count your stitches, make sure that you still have 10 Oops, dropped it. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Now just do your back pass. Okay, so again, we're going to alternate. We started with a simple stitch over here, so now it's going to be a purl stitch. And that is how you repeat the pattern. If it is a simple stitch, you're going to purl it. If it's a purl stitch, you're going to simple stitch it. So I'm going to move a little bit faster. The key is making sure you have all of the stitches, that you didn't miss one of them purl stitches because they're hidden. Now we'll do our back pass. You can kind of see it forming. I'm going to do a few more rows of this so that way you get a little bit bigger of a swatch to look at, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have done multiple more rows, and here's what the swatch looks like. Hopefully you can see it all right. What could you use this for? Well, I'm actually making a table runner with mine. I started with on the bias, and then I went into the honeycomb, and I'm going to continue working on the honeycomb for quite a while and finish with an on the bias. And that's what I'm doing with mine. This is cotton, and I will be doing it for my kitchen table, which is relatively small. That's why that's a small sized runner. And this is what the back side of the work looks like, and the front side. So I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial, and be blessed, be a blessing, and until next time, everyone, bye for now.